Stay tuned for Butler on Business, coming up next on the Liberty Express.
We'll get back to the economy here in a little bit, but right now joining us on the phone is Deirdre Maloney. She's the president of Momentum LLC. She's an author, speaker, and empathetic nonprofit consultant.
Hey, Deirdre, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. You know, I was sitting in the board meeting of a nonprofit, an independent school the other night, and here comes this email. And within 5 minutes prior to me receiving the email about your book, they were going over the strategic plan. No mention of money. Mm-hmm. And then here comes your email. And I thought, whoa, how timely. The mission myth. Tell us about the mission myth.
Well, the mission myth I wrote, frankly, after running my own nonprofit, or I was the executive director of a nonprofit for 7 years, and have also sat on many boards and understand really both sides of that coin. And the mission myth is really about the fact that we join nonprofits as staff, not because we are excited about running like a business or about policies and procedures, and we join nonprofits as a board, not because we love being a fiduciary agent or fundraising, but because we love the mission and the passion that goes with it. And we tend to think, at least I did, and lots of people I know, that when we get into the nonprofit sector, the mission and the passion is what's going to get you to success. And that's what I say is wrong. What you really need to do, and nonprofits know this, but a lot struggle with how, is how to run like a business well. How to do good well is what I say. Really integrate what I call the 4 M's, which is management, money, marketing, and measurement with your mission. And that's what makes you optimally successful. And I talk about how to do that, and really mostly it's based on what I did wrong when I ran my nonprofit and then how I figured it out, including boards and strategic plans and money and all of it. So it's
all right. Well, let's talk about that then for a minute. Everybody on that board believes in the mission of the school.
Right.
But
of course.
I would say, as there's a couple of us that are entrepreneurs that sit on that board, and the rest of them are not. So me and my entrepreneur buddy, we're always sitting there looking at it as a business. And then here comes your email. So let's discuss the mission myth. Now, you start off with mission, the mission of whatever this nonprofit may be. In the case of ours, it's a independent school.
Right.
All right. Can we go down the management, the 4 M's, management? What are we talking about?
Absolutely. I think, and this is really common, and I'll tell you the truth. I've sat on a lot of boards and done a ton of board work. I love boards and board work because it's messy, frankly. I think boards are set up in a lot of ways. But the fact of the matter is that really smart business people will join a board and just think differently about the sector because of this myth. So when it comes to management, when it comes to how you should run, it's really 2 things. It's having your system in place. So first of all, making sure the machine of your organization fits what you're trying to do and your goals. So first of all, knowing your goals, knowing who you are, where you are in the cycle of your nonprofit, how big are you, how much can you really do, what's your funding picture like. So knowing all that, what are our goals? And as far as management, whether it's the board side and the management side, it's having a system that supports that. What are our policies and procedures? And this is everything from how are we going to work with our staff? How are they going to come in every day? Who's going to get the mail? Who's going to set off the lights at night? When you have a system in place and policies and procedures and goals and strategies, then you're not leaving everything up to chance. You're also depersonalizing, because we all love our nonprofits, so we come in and we work very hard. And when things aren't working as well or we have to make a shift, it becomes very, very personal.
So what we're talking about then are specific job descriptions, duties, procedure manuals, just the way you would set up and run any for-profit enterprise.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And boards, too. Boards are not exempt from this. So how are we doing succession planning? How are we recruiting them in? How are we orienting people in so that they understand what fiduciary responsibility is? Who's going to really look at that give or get, which is the trickiest thing I think every nonprofit deals with, is that pesky give or get for fundraising. Once you create all those policies, then you do the selection piece. So you have your management and your system in place. Then you bring in the right fit for your organization at that time, being the people in the seats, because they're the ones who will get you there. Their passion will get you there. But you have to have your goals and you have to have your system so that you're really being thoughtful and intentional about what you're doing every day. Otherwise, you could do 100 things every day that don't necessarily get you optimal results.
Well, the second M that you want to integrate here, or stress the importance of integrating, is money. Are we talking about just budgeting here, cash accounting? Is there something more when you're talking about money? What are you suggesting?
No, the big thing here is I call it the 3 pillars of pain for nonprofits. Every nonprofit's dealing with money first, and then staff morale is hard, and board relationships are hard, but money always rises to the top. And what people need to understand about money in the nonprofit sector is it is both an art and a science. So just like everything else, you have to have your system in place. You have to know your budget. Your board needs to understand how to read a balance sheet. Your staff needs to understand what they're supposed to be spending and why. Nothing should be secret here. And you have to have your systems in place as what are our fundraising streams, how are we going to do it, and who's going to get it done. At the same time, this is sales. This is good sales. Sales gets a bad rap. And I do a lot of trainings with people because the fact of the matter is most of us don't like to ask for money. Most of us don't. And yet we bring in people and boards to do fundraising, and we wonder why we can't be successful. So when it comes to really integrating the money M, it's understanding the science of the money and having your system set up in a feasible way that's going to bring in real money for your organization and not plugging holes. But also understanding that there's certain people who are going to be great at asking for money and lots who won't. So how to work through that and prepare everybody to be as successful as possible. And
I'm assuming that ties very closely in with the overall marketing strategy. I did want to ask you, in your research, have you found that nonprofits are effectively utilizing all the new technology we have with media, social media, with all the mobile technologies, things like that?
Well, you know what's happening is they're trying. They're definitely trying. And the good thing is we have a lot of people who are emerging leaders who really understand this technology better. But, you know, I teach a marketing class for a Master's in Nonprofit Management program here at the University of San Diego, and my class is filled with what I call the and marketing people. Nonprofits very rarely have the luxury to have a person specifically staffed to work on marketing. So they're going to be putting together an event and trying to keep a blog going or trying to put in a Twitter account and not, again, thinking strategically as to, at the end, what do we really want to do here? And when I talk about marketing, the first thing I tell nonprofits, and this is a painful lesson I had to learn, is there are lots of great nonprofits out there. So a lot of us tend to think that if we just let people know what we're doing and the good work we're doing, that they will or should give. But I say the point of marketing is not just to tell people why they should give to you, but why they should give to you instead of giving to the other guy. Because there's lots of great organizations. We love our organization, so we think everybody else will fall in line. But we have to be very strategic in understanding who's most likely to give to us and help us meet our goals, and go to them very strategically and convince them that we do good well and also spend their money the way we say we're going to spend it. That's when you stand out.
Deirdre, one other point you have, one of your other M's is measurement. Now, they had some goals, rather generalized goals, and they asked me what I thought, and I said I learned a long time ago, if it cannot be measured empirically, don't include it. So is that what you mean by measurement?
It is. I think another thing that most of us fall into in the nonprofit or for-profit sector is what I call the bean counting. So, for instance, when I ran my nonprofit, we would have workshops to help different people change their behaviors. So we would start to measure the number of workshops we had or the number of people who came to our workshops or how many brochures we put out. But really the point of measurement is being able to say, how in the end are we going to know we're being successful? How can we look back and then make really intentional decisions moving forward with new strategies because we have good information? And the thing I really try to get across in this whole book, which is really meant to be very relatable and validating, and that it's meant to help people understand we're all in this together and they're not alone, and everything I did to really mess things up, is that it's not as hard as it sounds. That really thinking through, we know our organizations well. We know in the end what change behaviors we're looking for or what kind of stability for our clients or how many people are going to come to our museum and then come back to our museum. Setting up those measures takes time, but it's not, I think we put it off because a lot of us are very intimidated. It's not sexy, especially in the nonprofit sector. But it's critical, especially in the nonprofit sector, because we're doing such important work.
Deirdre, one thing I had thought about was the old U.S. Army slogan, be all that you can be. And if those are your goals, you need to go back and rewrite them. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. Yeah. What I'm saying is we're all in it to do good work. We all have the best of intentions. But it's exactly what you're saying is there's a difference between doing good and doing good well. There's a difference between doing something good in a day and getting optimal results. And when you're working toward a mission and using taxpayer dollars to do it simply by being tax exempt, it's really up to every nonprofit to make sure they're doing everything they possibly can to run well. And it's overwhelming and hard and under-resourced, but there's ways you can do it. You need the leadership. You need someone with a strong constitution to not always be liked. I always give the example, when I ran my nonprofit, I had to cut food from our food bank budget at one point to buy a server. And it didn't make me very popular. But in the end, it made us stronger. And so it's thinking like that's going to get you there.
All right, so let's say we've got a nonprofit, and the one I have in mind is an independent school, and we've got a strategic plan now that has nothing empirical in there, no mention of money. It's got the be all that you can be goals. And then the other line it's the old cheer from our high school days, hit 'em again, harder. That is not a strategy. So what do we, file 13 and put in a business plan?
What I would do is I'd take that strategic plan and start over, or at least start with your programmatic goals and start from there and say, okay, if these are the real goals we think that we can and should aim for this year, then yes, let's take a business plan and say the how. Who's going to be doing this work? How are we going to know every quarter? What are we going to measure every quarter to know we're getting there? Who's going to be doing it through what activities, and what's going to be the way we monitor and hold people accountable?
All right. Now, from a selfish point of view, and we're about out of time here, but from a selfish point of view, you hate to sit in there and be the crass capitalist who says, I need to take this plan of yours and we need to file 13 it. We've got to come up with a real business plan.
Right.
But that's basically what you're telling me. Well,
maybe you need to hand out a few copies of the Mission Myth.
Well, I'm going to. So. But I want an autographed copy, and I want to get you back on again.
And I will say the nice thing is, as a consultant, I always say my role is to be the nicest bad cop you'll ever see. And I'll tell you, when I ran a nonprofit, and you know people down where you are who'll do it well, I always brought people inside to help bring that message, because it's not always embraced because of the passion, but it's so important.
Well, the book is The Mission Myth, Building Nonprofit Momentum Through Better Business. Deirdre Maloney, we certainly appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. We'd like to have you on again.